Welcome along, everybody. We are here for action, I think, almost. Bronze action, that is, for goodness sake. Right then, we have got two people missing. And we've just had to do a quick lobby restart, so we'll name and shame people, shall we? We've got a Williams missing, we've got an Alpine missing then, and that is great stuff indeed. So we're going to get started, as they've already flustered me in the bronze chat tonight then, so I'm going to be very interested in what's going on here tonight then. Let's just say that. Good evening all then from Beast then. All the best to Bronze then, says the Ultimate Beast then. Thank you very much to Beast as well, of course. Evening all from Mark Smith, or Jinner, that is, of course, looking to get himself another race win then after last week as well then. Jinner, Pole and Smithy win, says Beast. This is a prediction tonight then, so we'll have to wait and see if that's going to come true then here in Portimao of all places then. Round 5 then, of course, if you didn't watch Gold, it is the first time we're racing around Portimao in the last 4 seasons, so interesting stuff indeed. We'll see how it's going to fare then for the bronze grid. Evening all, good luck and lads, says Rocket Lee then. Sorry in advance. Oh dear, doesn't sound too good then. Evening from Dylan as well then. Good stuff indeed. Good stuff. Right, then we're ready to get cracking, I think, hopefully. In the championship standings, then we'll have a quick run through them because we're waiting patiently then for those who have not got themselves woken up just yet then. But of course, like I said, we had a very late lobby restart because we had some issues getting into the session for some people. Then Luke leads the way in the driver's standings then with 76 points then for the Kick Sauber. Then we've got Dynamo Dan then in the Red Bull, 55 points for his tally at the moment. Then, of course, he is 21 points behind the race, or the championship leader as it stands. And, oh dear. Yeah, we've got someone back in. That's good. Vintage is back in then. So that's good stuff indeed. Then, so Dynamo Dan P2 with 55 points, and then we've got. I'm not quite sure if the Williams is joining us or not. Then we've got 49 points then for Dan in the Alpine. Then, so only 6 points away from Dynamo Dan, his former teammate last season in the other car as well. Then we've got Mushroom then P4, then Jilly in P5 after his fantastic win last week. Then Rocket Lee in P6 and looking pretty good indeed for Rocket Lee. Then Mr. Elite in P7, then Smithy Almighty in P8 then for the other Kick Sauber, then Hungry Styles P9, and Corey rounding off the top 10 in the driver's standings, that is. In the constructors, we'll have a quick look at as well then. 108 points then for Kick Sauber, of course, in bronze. In bronze, the top 15 score in the race then, so long as they are in the car then and in the session. And not DNF, that is, as well. So that is why the points tally is a bit different for bronze this season. Then Kick Sauber then leading the way then with 108 points. Then Aston Martin then of Serious Mushroom and Winnie then 67 points. So quite a margin then to the top spot then for P2 in the constructors standings. 66 points, 1 point behind Aston Martin is Williams and Rocket Lee. And Corey Brennan then making up the third spot then in the constructors. And they are joint with the Haas team who are in P4 then on 66 points as well. And then that's Styles then who's on a bit of a run of podiums in the recent weeks, and Mr. Elite then in the Haas then rounding off P4, then McLaren P5 with 64 points, then 55 points for Alpine in P6, and the same then for Red Bull in P7, then 55 points for each of them, 28 points for RB, then Ferrari then with 23 points then, and Mercedes bringing up the rear then with 11 points, I should say, goodness me. Right then. Constructors done and dusted. Then hopefully we're on to the stream itself then. Flippy said then, evening guys as well then, and going to be a good race though, says Rocket Lee then. Singapore, Spinner Rooney, goodness me then, that's turn 8, sorry. Evening all from Mushroom as well then. Heard it raining as it's Farf hosting then. To be fair, that could be the case, you never know. Right then, we can crack on. Evening Mushroom as well then, from Beast as well then. Good stuff indeed. Finally, we're getting ourselves going and underway here in Portugal, and fingers crossed then we can get ourselves going then for this race as well then. Opinion on esport, guys, then. I haven't watched any of the esports in the last couple of weeks, but I know that I know it's coming back very soon, isn't it? Or it's coming back this week itself, but I've missed all of it, so there we go then. But something to catch up on indeed. But we will find out then, as I'm not hosting, says ALR Esports, then doesn't really matter, does it? So there we go then. Fantastic. At least we've got an update there. Let's go Dan then from Eben as well, and good stuff indeed then supporting the Alpine machine. Looks a bit overcast here in Portugal as we load ourselves in to get ourselves started for qualifying though. Where's the map? There we go. We want the map up. Good stuff. Smithy is hosting, says Rocket Lee, and today, says Ultimate Beast. So there we go. That's good stuff. Right then, we've got 19 drivers in the lobby. Unfortunately, one Williams hasn't got himself woken up just yet then to get himself back in, but he was in earlier then, but of course with the lobby restart, unfortunately has maybe gone to the bathroom or something like that to get himself prepared for lightening the load of his vehicle as we get ourselves into qualifying now. Then Gina then going to be coming out on track first in the McLaren then to set ourselves underway for this qualifying shootout, of course. And I just realised there's no audio. There we go. That's better. Right then. Now we can crack on then. Evening Beast from Mushroom. That is, goodness me. I can't get the orders sorted out then. Hopefully I can get the order run through and very quickly indeed then as we go through qualifying then, as a couple of drivers then getting themselves out on track early doors then for Ginner then, and for Styles as well then in the Haas. Of course, Styles on a run of back-to-back podiums then from the Mystery Grand Prix then, and of course the round before, which I believe was Japan. But my goodness me, I cannot remember that far back then. I think it was, because we've done Australia, China, Japan, Mystery Grand Grand Prix, and now Portimao. Then we're heading into Europe now. Oh dear, Ginner's had a bit of a slide there heading down that hill. Yeah, heading into Europe now, into this leg of the calendar that is, and now into the European side of things with Portimao then starting us off. Then we've got Imola, of course, coming up then, and then heading over to somewhere else in Europe, but goodness me, who knows where that is. Right then, good stuff indeed. Then Ginner then going to be leading us away then for the first outing around the Portuguese circuit. Then here in Portimao, then away he goes up the hill this time then to start his first flying lap then of the session, heading down towards that very fast-paced turn 1. Then making sure you get that turn 1 right is very important indeed. Not going too wide, then keeping it within track limits as well. Then on the exit, then very nicely done into turn 2. And now this is where the traction gets a bit wobbly then as we go up in towards turn 4. Then making sure you keep within track limits on the exit as well. Then he's gone very nicely indeed over there. DRS down this mini straight, then in towards the hairpin. He's gone purple, of course, as the first man on circuit tonight then in this qualifying session. But going around that hairpin, very nicely done indeed then for the McLaren driver. Then so far so good. Then into sector 2. Then this is where it gets a bit more treacherous as well. Then heading up this hill at this point of the lap, then gone into 4th gear, then up the hill then, which is I think the best gear, then through that corner, then making sure you don't go too hard on the traction, or on the power I should say, then heading up that hill as well. And now into sector 3 momentarily. Then harvesting some ERS then it looked like as that rear light then flashing away there on the diffuser, then going red, then he's gone purple once again then of course in sector 2, but he should go purple. Then he's the first man to set a lap here in this session, then provided he keeps within track limits. Then round the final couple of corners then, well, this is the penultimate corner really, isn't it? But this is a flat out corner, round and down the hill. Then we go flying up to the start finish straight. Then it goes now back up the hill, and ERS light flashing away then, but Ginner then does a 17-0 to set ourselves underway then here in bronze tonight. Then fantastic stuff indeed. Then let's see what his rival, of course, Styles, can do then as well. Then Styles then coming down into the penultimate corner now as well. And Yo says Jake the Slayer, then props Dylan says Jake the Slayer, and emoji of smiley face with sweaty I don't know what that is. Right then, here comes Styles. Styles then is 17-2 then. He's only 2 tenths behind. Then there's a Ferrari of Casey Jennett then I think that is, but I'm not quite sure what the plan then is for Casey. Then he seems to be we seem to be almost in the way then of Styles then, but thankfully that is all sorted. Then Styles then is off the circuit then, causing yellow flags, so that's good. We've got a kick Sauber out there as well. Then that is Luke then just finish off his out lap I should say. Then Dynamo Dan is on a flying lap though then into sector 3, and let's see what Dynamo Dan can do. Of course he's second in the Drivers' Championship as it stands in, but quite a margin then, 21 points then to the top spot, with Luke leading the way then currently then, but of course only 4 rounds completed so far. Then this is the 5th round of the season here, and now we see what Dynamo Dan can do then up to the line. Here comes the Red Bull then charging up to P3 then with a 17.5, then 5/10, well half a second I should say, off the top spot as it stands then. Ducanco's done a 19.1 then, but I think he's just starting off another lap here in the Ferrari. We'll come back to him then. Mr. Elite then heading through the final couple of corners now as well in the Haas. Then let's see what Mr. Elite can do here for the American team. Here he comes then round the final couple of corners then, now flat out then towards the line, and let's see what Mr. Elite can conjure up. Then Corey Brennan has joined the session then, thankfully he's woken up now and can get himself in the car hopefully. Then Mr. Elite then 17.4, then puts himself P3 then right behind his teammate, and that is row 2 then for Mr. Elite. Then Casey's at 20.0, then puts himself P6 then, but unfortunately I think Casey had a bit of an issue in starting his lap then on the first lap that is, so he's going to have to come back round again then and go again, and maybe setting aside to then on this lap. Then Luke, the championship leader, heading into sector 3 now. Let's see what Luke is going to be up to then, but Luke is on intermediate compound tyres which match the green of the kick Sauber very nicely indeed actually, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to be very competitive, so we'll come back to him then later on. Then Real Ashton then is starting off a lap, then he's going through turn 2 into turn 3 and 4 and over the crest of the hill then, making sure he keeps it within track limits as well. Then very nicely done indeed, then heading down towards the treacherous hairpin. He's gone purple in sector 1 as well, that's pretty good stuff indeed. Luke's done 24.8 then on his intermediate compound tyres, but unfortunately Luke, we're not going to watch you on your intermediate compound tyres because we don't care, but because it's definitely not raining out there at the moment, but it did look a bit overcast when we started off the session. Then as we go over the hill, then Real Ashton then taking that very nicely indeed. It looked like then from our point of view, or our camera angle then, from lovely Codemasters. We praise Codemasters, they are great, they are the holy grail of code mastering games. Yes. Right then, into sector 3 now for Real Ashton. Then good stuff indeed so far in the first 2 sectors. Can he round off the lap then in the final sector as well here for the Red Bull team? Then we're flying through the last couple of corners now, and this is where he lines the car up then and just sprints to the finish then as well then for the Red Bull car. Then let's see what he can do then around the final corner we go, then flying down the hill, then flying back up the hill then with ERS. Maximum power, maximum pace then up to the line for Real Ashton. It's an 18.5, puts himself P6 for the time being then. Brilliant stuff indeed then. Good stuff so far. We've got Luke then. Oh dear, we've got Williams out on track. Then there's a Ferrari trying to go through there. The Ferrari's invalidated his time. Then he's off the circuit. Then unfortunately for Casey, unfortunately that's not a part of a track, not part of the circuit that we read. Then Ginger Rage has done an 18.7. Then puts himself P7. Fantastic stuff indeed from the Racing Bull driver. Then good stuff as well. Then his teammate Jake the Slayer heading through sector 2 now. We'll come back to him. We've just had somebody else jump up the order. It's Serious Mushroom then to the front row with a 17.1. Brilliant stuff from him. And Mushroom then on a charge. It looks like then he's currently P4 in the driver's standings. And let's see, can he get himself into the top 3 and challenge then for a promotion place as well? We'll have to wait and see, but he's doing a fantastic job so far in qualifying here tonight. And there we go then. Casey back in the, Casey coming back into the pit lane, I think then. Luke back in the pits as well then. Casey's chasing down that Williams then, whoever that is, but Corey I think is on an outlap then. Jake the Slayer then coming round the final corner then to, oh dear, he's gone very wide there. Goodness me, I've almost lost sight of him on that camera angle as well. Then heading up to the line, and he seems to have switched everything off then. So there we go then. It's a 21.3 for Jake the Slayer then as it stands. And so unfortunately not his best. I'm not sure that's his best unfortunately on his first attempt then, but we've got plenty of time still left in the session. 10 minutes to go here in qualifying. IRS then has gone purple in sector 3 I think it was, but he's 19.0, put himself P10 for the time being. Then IRS then looking good indeed as it stands, but looking to improve as well. And there's a Haas then causing all sorts of issues there. Who was that then? It was Hungry Styles. He's just driving off into the grass then. He's causing all sorts of problems then for the cars behind, because there's all sorts of dust being kicked up then by that Haas then heading through towards the hairpin now. And I'm not sure they're going to be very happy about that then, as IRS has gone through into sector 2 then. Let's stay on board then with the Mercedes driver. I think, oh no, we'll come back to him because Corey again is coming through sector 3, and I've missed Ginner then. Ginner's done a 16.6, my goodness me. Then Rocket Lee has done a 17.1 as well. Then wow, it's tumbling in then. Those two then have been fantastic in the qualifying conditions, and hopefully they can keep it all together then for the race. And fantastic currently on the front row then for Rocket Lee P2, and Ginner then cementing his place then in P1 with a 16.677. And currently it's just under 0.5 of a second then from his rivals then as well as it stands in. But here comes Corey. Can Corey then try and get himself into that mix as well? Then let's see what the Williams driver can do then, heading around the final corner then up to the start finish line now. It's a 17.9, puts himself P7 as well then, ahead of Ginger Age, who unfortunately will be very unhappy about that then in the Racing Bull then. But yeah, there we go then. So, Casey then has jumped up to P9 then with an 18.3, just ahead of his teammate now as well. They're both the Ferraris on an 18.3 as it stands. And here comes no, it's not IRS. What's going on then? I think IRS then has he's running out of fuel there as well, and so I think he's just finished a lap. Then he stays P12 then, but he's done an 18.5 then, improved by half a second almost then on his previous time. Jake the Slayer heading down towards the hairpin, unfortunately not improving, well, not improving by 0.8 of a second, so it's minimal in the first sector that is. But now we go into sector 2 then. This is where it's going to get dicey indeed, because you can gain and lose a lot of time then if you get the corners right in sector 2. And heading up the hill now in third gear as well. That's very dangerous. And my goodness me, there's a Ferrari then as well. Then I think that was I'm not quite sure who that was, to be honest, but yes, they need to make sure they're aware of their mirrors then as people are coming through on their qualifying laps here as well. Then another Aston Martin of Winnie then coming up to the line. Then let's see what Winnie can do on his first outing here in qualifying. P5 then, a 17.2 then, very close indeed to rivaling his teammate, and very close indeed in the mix with the Haas pair as well as we go through then into the last part of the laps. Then Corey coming back into the pit lane. We've got, I think that's IRS then abandoning his lap time as well, coming back into the pits. And here comes Jake the Slayer. Then Jake the Slayer looking to finish off his first first meaningful flying lap. That is a 17.8, puts himself P8 ahead of his teammate for the time being. And Umabro's on a 17.9, then demoting Ginger H further down the order even as well. Goodness me. But Ginger H is on a flying lap, it looks like him, but he's got a lot of ERS to play with for sure. Both the Hasses are doing a bit of teamwork, I think, down this straight as well then. And well, yes, I think they are doing a bit of teamwork then as well, because Hungry Styles then has taken the position. Then Smithy up into P2. Smith. He's done a fantastic job here. Then he's come out of nowhere then as Smithy in the kick sour then and got himself onto the front row of the grid. Then a 17-0 then for the green machine, and that is currently the front row then for kick sour. But then as it stands, then usually we'd see Luke then up the order then, but he is currently having a few issues then on his intermediate compound tyres. Then he's done a lap on his intermediate compound tyres, I should say. This time he's on the soft compound tyres. What's it going to be then for Luke? Then it's a 17-0, puts himself P2, and he's ahead of his teammate by half a tenth of a second, and that is pretty good stuff indeed. Winnie then coming back into the pit lane, I think there, so that's him done and dusted on his in lap now. We've got an Alpine of Dan. Here comes Dan. Then Dan up into P2, a 16.6 as well. Then my goodness me, Dan is incredible. And that's his first outing in qualifying as well. So there's still potentially time to find then for Dan as well. Then that's the front row for the Alpine driver then. And he has been looking pretty impressive stuff indeed. Of course, third in the driver's standings as well. So he is looking to try and get some more big points then under his belt then to cement his championship charge as well here as we go through then into the final few minutes then of qualifying. There's a Haas then of Hungry Styles. Then Styles jumps up to P4. Then front row for him, then he is only 4 thousandths away then from P3 of Luke as it stands, and splitting the two kick saubers as well then. Kamara Racer, evening boss, then hello racers and good luck, Bronze and Styles for podium, says Kamara Racer. Then thank you very much, Kamara. Then we appreciate your donation, absolutely brilliant. Then from Kamara Racer, then you are a star subscriber then, and a star man as well. Then thank you very much indeed to Kamara Racer there as well. Then and of course, unlike Sean, you are not going towards funding my lunch or my chocolate or whatever it is that Sean you fund Sean for, but you're going to go towards something more meaningful for the league itself then, which is what all the donations actually go towards. Dynamo down then finishing off a lap, then he stays P10 though, unfortunately then for the Rebel. Then he's not looking as confident as it stands then as we go through then for Ginger Age, and unfortunately he's going a bit slowly there. I think maybe run out of fuel then for the racing ball, then hopefully he can get himself out of the way of Serious Mushroom, who's about to start a lap then very soon. Where is the McLaren? Then the McLaren, there's the yellow flags all over the place. Then there's a McLaren of Astra John then, I think, starting off a lap very shortly as well. Hungry Styles coming back into the pit lane, so I think a few drivers then finishing off their qualifying attempts as it stands, and coming back into the pits as well then to wait and then have a bit of cup of tea then and start off another flying lap, or the final flying lap I should say, very soon indeed as well then. Right then, so far so good. We've got Ducanco then, who's on a outlet then, but not burning any ERS then, so I think he's going to, well, he's on a lap I should say, but he's not burning any ERS, so I think he's going to go again in the near future. So very good stuff indeed then. Beast said, nice lap. Mushroom as well then. Mushroom said, messed up. There's Apex there somewhere, says Mushroom as well then. Hola, says Francisco as well then. Welcome to the stream then as well then for you, Francisco. And welcome to ALR as well then. Very nice to have you with us as well then. Real Ashton back in the pit lane, so he's abandoned his lap time on that occasion. There's still 4 minutes left of the qualifying though, so there's still time to get back out there and go again then. Astra John then, no time on the board just yet then as we go through into sector 3 then. He has currently done a 52.3. Of course we can't really see what the delta difference is because he's not set a time just yet, but this will be his first time on the board then in this qualifying session, and unfortunately it might be his only time in this qualifying session as well. Then we'll have to wait and see as we go over the crest of the hill then now, and now down the hill then, flying through then. ERS now on the money then as we go up towards the line then for the first time then in this qualifying session for Astra John, and it is P11 then for the McLaren. Then puts himself into the mix then into P11 then for the orange papaya, and very good stuff indeed on his first outing as well. Then good stuff then from Astra John. Then where is Rocket Lee rocketing into sector 2. He looked like he's gone purple then in he's gone purple as well then in sector 1 there. Mushroom seems to have burned quite a lot of energy then as well, though I think he might have done and dusted then his Mushroom, but he's done a 17-0 then, puts himself P5 for the time being. Then Rocket Lee is Ray Lashton has unfortunately retired in the pit lane. That is him done and dusted in qualifying as well. Then heading down the hill then for Rocket Lee. Then he's 2.5 tenths up on his previous time. That will put him into the range then of P3. I think then he's a bit too far off Dan as it looks I should say, but potentially you can find more time then in sector 3 as well then. Heading round the penultimate corner now then for the Williams car. Then let's see what we can do then up to the line now, or down to the line really as we go through here, but then up to the line now as we finish off the lap. Then Rocket Lee, then let's see what it's going to be then for Rocket Lee. Then it is P3 then with a 16.8. Then good stuff indeed onto the second row of the grid then, and only the third driver then so far, that is in the 16s as it is, but very good stuff indeed then as we've got an Alpine then coming out of the pit lane there as well. That was dangerous. I think there was an Alpine that almost caught Rocket Lee unawares then, but I think that's qualifying done for Rocket Lee because he's not going to have time to come back in the pit there I should say, and get himself back out on circuit as well then. but very good stuff. New P3 for him as it stands, that is. Then we've got Smithy Almighty then back out on a lap as well. Then Smithy Almighty then with his final attempt of qualifying, I think, here as well. Then coming around that final corner, then burning away then at ERS as well. Then as we head up to the line, then let's see what he can do then in the green machine. Then can he improve on P7? Then here he comes then up to the line. Then it's a 16.9, puts himself P4 onto the second row of the grid there. My goodness me. And he has improved then from P7 then to P4. Then brilliant stuff indeed. Hungry Styles then has oh dear, Hungry Styles is having an issue again then, it looks like, and trying to get himself back on the grey stuff rather than the gravel stuff, but there we go then. IRS has jumped up to P18 I think there, and can go again then, but unfortunately I think he's not got much ERS to play with unfortunately on this lap as well. Then Umabro then heading into the first sector. There's quite a lot of action out on track then. Where is that Alpine then, we ask? I think it might be Dan then. No, it's not Dan, it's the other Alpine of Vintage, and Vintage starting off a lap then. Where is the Ferraris? And same situation as well then, starting off their laps as well here. Ginger Rage He's gone very wide then at the final corner, and I think he's going to be starting off another lap then. There's an Astrodron then, sorry, it's a Winnie then, sorry, he's starting off a lap as well then. And Ginger Rage might be very close indeed to get a nice little tow down this main straight then. And yes, he's going to get a bit of a bump draft, not bump draft, sorry, he's going to get a bit of a draft then from that Aston Martin heading down the main straight then into turn one then. Very nicely done indeed then for Ginger Rage, as Vintage has retired in the pit lane, unfortunately for Vintage, and he has done and dusted in qualifying. No time on the board for Vintage either here, which is a bit of a shame then, but hopefully he can get himself some results then in the race itself. Then we'll come back to that then as we've got more action then crossing the line when we've got the Ferraris then starting off their laps. Then where is that Williams, I ask? And it is Rocket Lee coming back into the pit lane, I should say. He's going to be P3 at best then in this qualifying session. Then Umabro then has finished the lap. Then Umabro up into P9 then with a 17.3. Then great stuff indeed from Umabro. Let's see where the other Mercedes is as well, because it is close indeed then between there's an Alpine then, and what is going on here then between the Alpine then of Dan and IRS as well then. They're fighting into turn one almost as we go into the first sector then. Very close indeed then. Unfortunately that's not going to be too good then, as Rocket League is done and dusted, Smithy is done and dusted, Serious Mushroom is done and dusted as well. Then Astro John then as well in P13 I should say then. Umabra then just getting out of the way then, as coming through then as we go through into sector 2 then. Where is that Aston Martin of Winnie coming up to the line? Unfortunately has invalidated his time there, but it's on a 17.1 that would have put him into, well, would have kept him where he is actually. Never mind then as we go through then. Ginger Rage is done and dusted as well then. Here's P14, a 17.7 for Ginger Rage in the Racing Bull then. Where is the next Kick Sauber then, I ask? It's going to be Luke then. Luke up into P4 then. He displaces his teammate but stays on the second row of the grid then for Kick Sauber then. Good stuff indeed. Both the Hasses coming through as well then. Both the Hasses coming back into the pits as well then, abandoning their lap times. That is Mr. Elite P10 and Hungry Stars in P6 I should say. Dynamo Dan then coming through the final corner then. Corey Brennan's jumped up to P9 in the Williams, and so far so good then out in front then. We've got a very slow car then going around the penultimate corner. Then hopefully they can get themselves out of the way. Then here comes Dynamo Dan flying through the final corner. Then let's see if we can improve on P12. Dan's gone fastest. I'm sorry, Dan, I missed it completely. Dynamo Dan up into P8. Then Jinner's gone fastest still then with a 16.5 then, and takes back that pole position in just a few seconds. It looked like Dan had claimed it then at the very last then, but Jinner then fights back then with an improvement as well then of his own, and fantastic stuff indeed. Jinner and Dan battling away then for that pole position, and looking pretty formidable as well then, with some great pace then here in qualifying tonight then as well. Then we've got a couple of drivers then coming back into the pit lane as well then, but Jinner then takes pole position here in Portimao with a fantastic qualifying indeed then for McLaren. Then Dan not too far away as well then in P2 then on the front row of the grid alongside the McLaren of Jinner, that is, but looking pretty good then. He's only a 10th away then from the pole sitter then, which is this man here then, Jinner then in the McLaren then. Fantastic stuff indeed then. What a pole lap indeed then from the McLaren driver as well. And Honey Badger has said something that I think that's a glove. So yeah, thanks for the glove. I hate quality too, says Mushroom as well then. Alicia trying as well then, says Beast then. First time racing here as well, says Mushroom. And did that lap on old tyres, says Mark Smith as well then. So pretty good stuff indeed. I think the tyre wear, somehow, you would have thought is probably catastrophic around here, but the tyre wear isn't so bad around Portimao. And we might see a bit of a fluctuation in the strategies as well around here, so we'll wait and see. But there is the classification then for the grid then to start off this Portuguese Grand Prix. Ginner then pole position, Dan on the front row in P2, then Rocket Lee and Luke make up row 2, Smithy and Hungry Stars row 3, then Serious Mushroom and Dynamo Dan then row 4, then Winnie and Corey Brennan round off row 5, Your Mad Bro in P11, then Mr. Elite in P12, Jake the Slayer P13, Astrotron P14, Ginger Age P15, DeCanco P16, Casey P17, IRS P18, Real Ashton P19, and unfortunately for Vintage P20 with no time on the board. And Ginger Age has put, I think, some false teeth or something then in the chat as well. Good stuff indeed. GG Jenner says, Beast, we'll have a quick word from our lovely sponsors then, and we'll be back for the start of the Portuguese Grand Prix. Right then, we are, well, hopefully, yes, we are. We're just about in time, ready to get going for the Portuguese Grand Prix. 33 laps then of action-packed racing to come then as we go through the grid now as well. Then quickly just get that all sorted. And there we are then, quite a difference in strategy then throughout the field, to be fair. Then there's quite a few different strategies to start off the race, that is. We'll see how it goes then towards the end of the Grand Prix as well then. But getting us through then the formation lap then as we get ourselves warmed up then to start off this Grand Prix as well here. Back to silver you go, says Beast. Well, it seems like it on this form. We'll have to wait and see them. But currently, he's only P5 in the driver's standings. Then he's got to beat Luke. He's got to beat Dynamo Dan. He's got to beat Dan. He's got to beat Mushroom as well. Then, in terms of the points-paying positions, that is, to try and get himself back in the championship hunt as well. Then, so we'll have to wait and see. Then Luke then down in P4, not down in P4. He's in P4, I should say. That's not really a problem really for Luke. He's on the medium compound tyres. We'll go through the order. Then Ginner and Dan both on the front row. Then starting on the soft compound tyres, looking for a very quick start indeed here in Portimao. Rocket Lee and Luke then row 2 then on the medium compound tyres, so switching the strategy already then from the front row. Smithy has opted for the soft compound tyres, so switching it away then, switching the strategy up between the kick salvers as well. Then Hungry Stars mediums for the Haas then in P6, then Serious Mushroom on the softs as well in P7. Dynamo Dan, Winnie, Corey Brennan and Umabro then from P8 down to P11 on medium compound tyres for them. Mr. Elite's opted for the soft compound tyres to start this race. Then Jake the Slayer has gone for the hard compound tyres in the Racing Ball, so that's going to be an interesting strategy choice, because me to start off this Grand Prix. Astrotron then soft compound tyres, as is Ginger Age then in the other Racing Ball, then P15 for him. DeCanco then hard compound tyres for the Ferrari then in P16, then soft compound tyres for the second Ferrari then of Casey then in P17, that is. Medium compound tyres for the rest of the field then, that's IRS in P18, Real Ashton in P19 and Vintage in P20 then. So there we go then. We'll get ourselves lined up on the grid then to start off the Portuguese Grand Prix, just parking ourselves in our grid slots then to get ourselves started for this race as well. Come on, Racer said he should stay in bronze. So there we go then. Some differing opinions then in the comment section there, but there we go then. Let's see what it's going to be like then. Get your predictions in for the winner of this Grand Prix then early on then. If you can get it right then from the first lap, then I will commend you, and I don't know what I'll do to you. Right then, 5 red lights on in here in Portugal then. The 5 red lights are out then as we go racing here in Portimao then. A good start indeed then. It looks like then for the soft runners as we go in towards turn 1 then. Dan trying to get moved then, but there's a Williams then go around the outside into turn 1 then. Oh my goodness me, there's a bit of lag, I should say, there as well then. Good. Oh, what am I doing? I can't get everything right then as well then. We need to switch to position changes as well then. My goodness me, there's all sorts of things going on as well then. Down Pandemonium and Jake the Slayer's lost out 4 places then, of course, on the hard compound tyres then as well. Then heading through into the second sector, there's a car going wide there as well at the exit of turn 4. My goodness me, there's all sorts of action there as we pile into the hairpin now as well then. Round the outside goes Luke then, I think, on Serious Mushroom. He's lost out of place to his teammate, has Luke then. As we go through then, Jake the Slayer's got a 3-second penalty already for corner cutting. My goodness me, there's all sorts of actions as well. Then IRS and Casey are battling as well then. And what's happened to Casey then? He's going slowly there. And I think just letting people through then. Duke DeCanco's dropped down to P20 then. He's dropped down to right to the back of the field. Then Umabro is trying to fight back with Styles. Then he's dropped down 5 places as well then. My goodness me, it's a difficult start then for the Hats as we go through into Sector 3. And they're still side by side heading through into Sector 3 as well then. My goodness me then, as it's going to get dicey indeed then. Ginger Age is up into P13. He's gained 2 places as well then. Fantastic start indeed then for the Racing Bull. Then out in front, Rocket Lee has been passed by Smithy. And Smithy up into P2. Smithy's on a charge here into the first lap. Of course, he's on the soft compound tyres then, so you'd expect that there's going to be a bit of an advantage then for those on the soft compound tyres to start off with. As it stands then, Smithy up into P3. And trying to fight off Rocket Lee then. Rocket Lee also on the medium compound tyres, so he's not going to worry too much then. Smithy needs to get himself into that 1 second window then of the 2 ahead of him though. As we go through into turn 2 then, that's an ambitious move then, and oh goodness me, that is definitely well, not an overtaking spot really, because unfortunately that sort of thing can happen there and you're just going to get pinched as the other car ahead of you starts to turn in. As we go through into the hairpin, we've got Mushroom I think then trying to line up a move on Luke as well then, and we go through the hairpin now then. Has Mushroom got the traction on the exit there as well then? Not quite then. Luke holds on to P5. We've got more action into the hairpin as Ginger Rage. Oh my goodness me, what's happening here? Ginger Rage has got himself past the Umabra then for P12 as well. Then Ginger Rage on the soft compound tyres is charging along then. We go through into the rest of the field. Unfortunately for Casey, then he's not dropped down actually, I should say then, but he's being held up then by those in front of him. Then Jake the Slayer's dropped down to P18. Unfortunately on the hard compound tyres, that was going to be a very difficult tyre, especially with those on the softs around him at the start of the race then for the Racing Bull then to try and get those tyres warmed up. Same for DeCanco as well then, and I think that's probably why they dropped down a few places. Goodness me, as we go through into the end of lap 2 now as well then. Fantastic start indeed for Bronze then. Rocket Lee then is starting to struggle I think on those medium compound tyres already then, but can he get himself back in contention then down this main straight then? Smithy's got himself into contention already then with the top 2, and Smithy's got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix then. Look at him go, he's charging on then. Dan takes the lead and into turn 1 then. He's flying then, is the Alpine now up into P1 then. Jenna down to P2. Luke has got himself past Rocket Lee as well then. Has he? No, goodness me, there's contact there, and Mushroom's gone over the curb as well then and into turn 2. Oh god, dicey indeed, let's just say that then. Is definitely the word then. Luke has lost out then to the rest of the field then. The 3 ahead of him now, of course the 3 ahead of him are on soft compound tyres, and Mushroom diving down the inside at the hairpin then. Has he got the move done? Yes he has, and up into P5 as well here now. Good stuff indeed. Rocket Lee's fighting back then. But he's got the inside from the next corner then. Rocket Lee back up into P5. My goodness me. Yes, action-packed indeed. Look at this. Right then, let's have a look and see what the tyre situation is. Of course, those on the medium compound tyre, then those with the softs, then of course will be fighting to try and get themselves through, which is what Mushroom was doing there. But of course, the medium compound tyres then will start to fade in, or phase in, I should say. Then in the next few laps or so, then we expect the soft compound tyres not to last too long. Then penalties racking up. Then IRS then has got himself a penalty. Then Vintage has been passed by Astra John, sorry there, and all by Casey as well. Then down the inside then for Casey. Then an ambitious move then. Of course he's on the soft compound tyres as well then is Casey, so potentially he's trying to use those soft compound tyres to the best of their advantage at this stage. And Dan sets the fastest lap of the race then. Smithy Almighty then is putting the pressure on. Then Rocket Lee is under pressure from Mushroom as well once again then down towards turn 1 this time. Mushroom I think has got the move done and dusted. Yes he has. Then up into P5 for Mushroom. Rocket Lee then, sorry, Ginger holds on to the lead then. Smithy then stays P3 then, but the top 3 now starting to break away then. 2 seconds back to Luke on the medium compound tyres. Then Serious Mushroom on the soft compound tyres trying to make hay then on those softs as well. Then Rocket Lee has lost out to Winnie then for the time being, that is as well then. But if you go in towards the hairpin now, Winnie then takes P's. Oh my goodness me, there's more contact there I think. And now both the Williamses are side by side. Corey Brenner then P8 then as well. Then Ginger Rage, sorry, and Styles are battling away. Then Ginger Rage has got himself, Styles has got himself through, I should say. Goodness me. But Styles then with a difficult start there as well. Then has lost out then to the top 10 by 2 seconds already then as well. Unfortunately then for Styles, we've got Rocket Lee who's had an issue somewhere. Where's he gone? He's off the top of the hill then, isn't he? He's trying to get himself back on here, but it's going to be very close indeed with the Mercedes of Umabro flying through as well. Then goodness me, he's back on track now. and back underway. Oh God, I thought that Ferrari was going to dive there as well, but thankfully not then. Oh my goodness me, and what is Astra John doing there as well? Then he's gone so slowly there as well then, and that's going to be compromising both Rocket Lee and Casey Jennett then into the next corner, but they've got themselves through unscathed, I think then, and now it's through then, now it's done then, I think for that situation then, but unfortunately for Rocket Lee then, that spin has been costly then. He stays P15, he's in the points still, but of course he might be having a bit of a struggle trying to get himself back underway in that race as well then. Serious Mushroom's got himself past Luke then for P4 then, he's flying then, is Luke, it's Mushroom then up into P4 now as well then. Yamabro and the Mercedes I think are actually switching places as well then. IRS takes the place then. Hungry Styles has had another issue then, is back underway then at turn 2, I think he is. Yes, he is. Then he's down to P11 once again. Then, unfortunately, then he's been repassed by Ginger Rage. Then I think he only lost out to Ginger Rage, though. In that case, oh goodness me, I should say that Ginger Rage almost in the back. And then Mr. Elite, Dynamo Dan and Mr. Elite, no, Dynamo Dan and Corey. Sorry, we're switching places as well. Then Corey up into P7 here and trying to chase down the pack ahead of him as well. Then he's looking pretty good indeed as Corey at this stage of the race as well. Then Rocket Lee then is all over the back of Casey Jennett. Then there's all sorts of queues forming, I should say. Then there's Corey and Dynamo Dan are battling side by side into sector 3, and oh god, then that's going to be close. Indeed, it's still close indeed, and I think, I'm not sure Dan's got the inside, I should say. But Corey's going to go around the outside as he hit, and they're still side by side as we go into the penultimate corner, and it's close, there's a squeeze, it's close indeed. Rocket Lee's got himself past Umapro then for P14, I think. Yes, he has done. Good stuff. Wow, 6 laps of action then have been, almost completed. Corey then down the main straight is going to have some DRS to play with as well, trying to get himself past Dynamo Dan. He's almost driven into the back of the ripple there as we go in towards turn 1. Then, that's where you're going to get your nose sliced off if you try and keep your nose in there. And thankfully for Dynamo Dan, then he thought better of it as well then. Hungry Styles has got himself, oh god, there's contact then between Styles and Ginger Rage. Ginger Rage is going to be very angry about that. Then he's going to start raging indeed in that car, and hopefully he keeps his head. But he's going to try and retaliate then with some DRS then down towards the hairpin once again. Then he's going to go for a move down the inside. No, not quite. He thinks better of it then, does Ginger Rage. He's in a bit of a sandwich at the moment, which is a very sticky place to be indeed. Yes, the Haas sandwich as it stands then has got a Visa Cash App racing ball stuck in between it. Yes, I'm not quite sure if Ginger Rage is going to like that or not like that, but who knows. Right then, the gap out in front then is for the top three, just over 2 seconds then as it stands to Luke. Then Luke is keeping that gap quite honest now as it stands there, because maybe the soft compound tyres are starting to wane at this point of the race. Potentially, then there's still got a few laps to go then in this stint, and if you want to make it a one-stop race then, DeCanco and Real Ashton are battling away then for that final place then. They've got Jake the Slayer for company as well. Then we've got Umabro then being passed by Astrodron then up into P15, then the final points paying position of course in bronze this season. So far so good then. Becca said, who's leading? Oh, Becca, it's nice to hear from you. Who's leading the championship at the moment then? It's definitely Serious Mushroom, I think. I'm not quite sure. I think it's Luke, actually, to be fair. But there we go then. Dynamo down then into P7, then passing Corey Brennan. Then we've got, I think, Mushroom and Luke then engaging in their battle again. And Luke then not being able to get himself past that Aston Martin for the time being. The other Aston Martin, now Luke's in a bit of a sandwich as well then. We've got all sorts of action down the back of the field. We've got, Jake the Slayer's gone through, then passing Real Ashton into turn 1. And Real Ashton, I think, has had a bit of an issue then somewhere, because he's let that racing ball fly through then into turn 4, and now we go through then. Rocket Lee's back up into P12, then passing IRS, then IRS, oh dear, what's happened then? I think there's contact then with the Williams as well, because IRS is dropping down the field then massively, and there's Astra John involved in that as well then. Goodness me, it's getting close indeed then as we go up the hill, and I think they're going to... Oh, no. I think they're going to be carrying on then as we go side by side through here with Casey and Astra John, then the McLaren and the Ferrari, then side by side into Sector 3, then IRS struggling to slow the car down. Then, oh my God, there's going to be contact. I thought it's only lap 7 to be honest, and they've really put it on a show here as Casey's got the inside then for the next left-hander, but of course turned to the outside then for the penultimate corner, and now down the hill we go then. Astra John then I think has had to concede then to the Ferrari, but of course he's going to have some DRS to play with as well then. Out in front, Luke has got himself past Mushroom as his teammate goes through as well then into P5. Mushroom down to P6 then as it stands then. We've got Astra John then passing Casey for that position as well then. P13 13 for the McLaren then as we go through. And here comes IRS as well, then with some DRS, then down the hill, then towards turn 1, then IRS up into P14. Goodness me, it's action-packed down here as well. Then we've got even Jake Leclerc and De Canco having a bit of a battle then on the hard compound tyres. Unfortunately, 5 seconds off the pack as it stands in, but of course on the hard compound tyres, they will be back in the action then very soon, I would imagine, then in the next few laps or so, then especially with those on the soft compounds then starting to die off. Then I should imagine then that is Casey back past it. Well, no, these two carrying on their fight, it looks like, into the hairpin. Then Casey trying to fight off IRS, then the Mercedes and the Ferrari side by side then into sector 2. Goodness me. And Casey's been nudged off the circuit slightly there, but I'm sure he will be a-okay to try and fight back in this one as we go over the crest of the hill. Then once again, then Ginger Age is up into the top 10 then somehow, which is very scary stuff indeed for Ginger Age. Then I'm not sure he's very familiar with that part of the circuit or that part of the grid, but there we go then. Heading over to lap 9 now very shortly. Top 3 then 1.8 seconds ahead. Then they are 1.8 seconds ahead of Luke, who's on the medium compound tyres, and of course Luke maybe. We'll have to wait and see then which way the strategy is going to go. The winning then takes P4 away from him, sorry. But we'll have to wait and see then which way the strategy is going to go then in their favour. Then is the medium start then to the softs potentially the best tyre strategy then, or will the soft start then to the mediums be the best strategy as well? We'll have to find out then in due course, of course, at the end of lap 33, I should say. Viva Serious Mushroom then, says Becca as well. Then very nice indeed to have Becca, of course, supporting Serious Mushroom then, because of course she stole the driver of the day away from Serious Mushroom a long time ago now, back in Silverstone I think it was then, but he never forgets there's Mushroom, so I'm sure he'll remind you about that in the comment section as well then at the end of the stream. And Vintage is up past Umabro for P15. And again, more of a sandwich helping then, more of a sandwich forming, I should say, between the Mercedes pair. And this time Vintage then up into P15 into the points paying positions now for the Alpine driver as well then. Good stuff indeed, out in front. Out in front, it's pretty, you can see them all within the same corner at this point. Look at this, it's fantastic. There we go, then flying through then the penultimate corner then for the Alpine of Dan and the McLaren of Ginner then, and the Kick Sauber then of Smith the Almighty as we fly through into lap 10 then of 33 then. This is where the soft compound tyres might start to drop off here, but we'll have to wait to see then if they're going to be able to get themselves further into this stint or not, then, or whether they're going to call it early potentially and go for the hard compound tyres for the second stint. We'll find out then, but carrying on then is the top 3 then, flying through very nicely indeed then. I'm just going to be sitting here looking for photogenic opportunities, it looks like, but they are putting on a fantastic show so far. And oh dear, Ginner's had a bit of a problem then coming out of turn 4 then, so that might open the door for Smithy to make a move into the hairpin. Then we'll see if that Kick Sauber is going to make that move, but not quite. Then he stays behind for the time being, but there we go. Then we'll have a look and see what's going on. Normal service resumed now, and we'll see what Jake the Slayer and De Canco are still up to. Vintage has had a problem somewhere, and Casey's gone back through. Then unfortunately Vintage has lost in place then to the Ferrari, it looks like, and I think there might have been a bit of help in the hand then between themselves and the potentially and those Mercedes, because they were very close in proximity on the previous lap. Jake the Slayer then and De Canco on the hard compound tyres are bringing that gap down now as well. Then it was over 5 seconds, now it's now under 3 seconds for Jake the Slayer, so the gap coming down then in the favour of those on the hard compound tyres. Potentially we'll start to see those on the mediums then start to compete more as well then with those on the soft compound tyres as well. Then Luke then bringing that gap down as well from over 2 seconds to now 1.7 here as we head on to lap 11 very shortly indeed. And Becca said he doesn't keep grudges at all then. Well, you have to take that with Mushroom, but to be fair, you're probably right. So there we go then. Heading on to lap 11 then. Here comes the top 3 then, storming through. Then none of them are going for any moves though. It doesn't look like they're staying status quo for the time being. Luke and Winnie, are still staying there as well. The Ginger Age is in the pit lane, so let's see what Ginger Age is going to be up to then. Here's the first man then to call it here in Singapore. In the wrong part of the world then. Here in Portimao then, there we go. And he has decided to call it a day on the soft compound tyres. Is he going to go for mediums or hards is the question now. It's mediums then going on that racing ball then, and away he races then out of the pit lane. He will be down the back of the order unfortunately, but he of course will be on the freshest tyres in the field. And Casey and IRS then very close indeed as well then. Oh dear, over the top of the hill then, Casey struggling on those soft compound tyres as well. That's a potential. Ginger Ray just called it just right then to get off those soft compound tyres not very early on, but earlier on, and there's contact between the Ferrari and the Mercedes there as well. Then goodness me, and Real Ashton's had an issue as well. Then I think at the hairpin, no, they haven't. There's just incident above. Then IRS then coming together with Casey then on the exit of the hairpin, really not in the hairpin, but yes, an odd place to have a spin there that is. But nonetheless, they have got themselves sorted and back underway. Right then, closest battle's actually out front here, but let's see if it's going to be, after Ginger Age has triggered the pit stop phase, potentially we might see some pit stops coming for the leaders. Not quite then. The top three stay out then. Luke's now only 1.6 seconds behind, then Winnie then coming at him as well then in P5. Serious Mushroom holding on to the train as well then, but unfortunately I think it's just about dropped out of DRS range. He's got some DRS still down this main straight, but unfortunately I think we'll be out of that 1 second window very shortly as well. Then Dynamo Dan in P7 then trying to catch up to Mushroom, then trying to catch up to the rest of the field as well on the soft compound tyres. He's got Corey Brennan breathing down his neck as well then in P8 for the time being. IRS has picked up a 3-second penalty then for multiple track limits, unfortunately for IRS. If one of them was picked up actually at that last incident, then we can review that and remove that as well then. But there we go then. Altitude sickness for Ginger Age, says Becca, and maybe that's why he had to pit to get himself sorted then. But he's now on a fresh set of medium compound tyres, and away he goes then in the Visa Cash App Racing Ball then with his lovely pink helmet and a lovely new yellow walled tyre then to try and get himself to the end of the Grand Prix from here. Then he's going to have to do about 21 laps then on those 22 laps I should say on the medium compound tyres. But we'll see if it's doable then. I'm pretty sure it is doable then, but we'll see what Ginger Age can do with them as well as we go through then on to lap 13 momentarily. Then this is where we might see some more stops now, and soft compound tyres getting towards the end of their lifespan, I would imagine, that although they're not bringing the gap down now. The top, those on the mediums behind actually are not bringing the gap down. Jenner's in the pit, Smithy's in the pit. Jenner's got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane as well. Then this pit lane is pretty precarious then for trying to get yourself caught, trying to catch you out then into the pits as well. Then unfortunately for Jenner, he has got 10 seconds then for speeding into the box. Then unfortunately for the McLaren driver, then he's got himself serviced onto a new set of medium compound tyres then and back underway. But unfortunately that is going to be very costly indeed then after battling then for the race lead. Then it might be his race lead gone and gone then for Jenner then already. Then of course he's going to come out then in a net race lead, that is, but he's going to be coming out in quite a bit of traffic as well then. Oh my goodness me. And where are we? Case has gone flying through then, and Jenner then on the fresh tyres has gone into the back of him then as well. So it's not working out very well then for Jenner then on those fresh tyres then, but he's now got some purges and some traction indeed then compared to Casey on his old soft compound tyres, and he's passed the Ferrari then into the hairpin then up into P11 now of course as well. Then Smithy Almighty needs to make hay as well then on those medium compound tyres and try and get himself past these back markers, or not back markers really, but those who have yet to pit I should say really, because unfortunately there's a bit of a mix up in strategy right here, and this is where the crossover point is as well then. So those on the soft compound tyres are thinking about making their pit stops now as well. Then Corey Brennan's got himself past Dynamo Dan then for P5, which is not a net P5 at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see then if there's going to be more pit stops as well. Then Dan into the pits then, slowing it down in time. Then Mushroom also coming in as well then on the soft compound tyres and slowing that car down just in time as well. Then Luke and Winnie then battling for the race lead. Then Winnie takes the lead of the Grand Prix on to lap 14. And where is Dan's rivals then as well? Then where is Jenner? There he is then. He's right behind the Mercedes of Umabro then as we go through into the final corner. Then where is he going to be then in respect to his rival Dan as well as they come across the start finish line to begin lap 14. Smithy Almighty's on a charge as well. Then Smithy's going down the inside then into turn one. Look at the speed, and they're going to be side by side. There's contact there, and Jenner's, oh my god. And Dan's come out ahead. Dan's come out ahead then. Look at that. The traffic then for Jenner and for Smithy has cost them 2 seconds to Dan. And Dan's going to be loving that because he can see that Jenner's got a 10-second penalty then. He can see that Smithy and Jenner are battling away then into the hairpin of Sector 2 now as well then. And Dan can just use those fresher tyres, 1 lap fresher tyres to skate off in the distance. And Smithy's got a 3-second penalty then, trying to battle alongside with Jenner as well. Then into Sector 2 then. This is really going to get tight indeed, and round the outside, a long way round the outside for Jenner then. Oh dear, I thought he's lost the car then. There he is, he's side by side as we go over the crest of the hill then once again then, and this time the kicks over, my goodness me, has lost out unfortunately. Wow. Right then, Jenner then P9. Of course, Net's P2 in terms of the stops, that is. Astrotron is the only man who's carried on then on the soft compound tyres. He's done 14 laps at the end of this one. Corey Brennan and Dynamo Dan then switching places once again then as we go down the hill towards turn 1. And unfortunately for all the battling then, as Rocket Lee's also in the pit lane as well. And that's quite early on then for Rocket Lee. Astrotron has also followed him in then on the soft compound tyres. So is Rocket Lee going for the soft compound here, or is he going to go for a hard compound? I'm not quite sure then. I would imagine that he could have just, if he could carry on then he would have gone for he's going for the hard compound then, unfortunately for Rocket League. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct strategy here, but we'll find out then towards the end of the Grand Prix. Rocket Lee then is going to come out of the pit lane now. Then he's going to be ahead of Astrodron then, and ahead of Casey Jennett then, of course, who were both recently pitted as well then. But of course there's still pit stops to come then for quite a few of the field then. I think there's probably about half the field still to pit then as it stands. The top 5 yet to pit then, along with Umabro, IRS, then Vintage, Jake the Slayer, Dukanko, Real Ashton. So there's quite a few still to come into the pit lane from this field as well then. Of course those who started on the mediums or the hards then, of course, will be going a bit longer. Those on the side on the softs will be going a bit shorter in the first stint, so that's the way it goes. But there we are then. Oh dear, says Beast as well. Then Gino and Smithy lost 1 second over Dan because of fighting, says Kamara Racer. Then so that's how much they lost then in that fight. Then trying to get through the traffic as well. Then as they came out of the pits then on their out laps, that is. And Dynamo Dan back past Corey. There's these two working together, I think, hopefully, or potentially. We'll have to wait and see then. But maybe they're not working together at all then. But there we are. Then Smithy and Gino then are coming round the final couple of corners. And Sirius Mushroom has got himself in contention here as well. Then of course, don't forget that of course Smithy and Sirius Mushrooms had the fast lap of the race then as well. Then brilliant stuff indeed. Don't forget that Gino and Smithy were fighting with Dan for the lead of the Grand Prix. There was that trio then that were leading by about 2 seconds ahead, and now Sirius Mushroom has got himself in contention with 1 lap younger tyres as well here. Could Mushroom be on the charge for potentially a podium, potentially even another race win then after his race win in China? This is looking pretty good indeed then. I don't want to jinx it because I probably will do as a commentator, that is, but there we go. Too late now, unfortunately. Very sorry indeed for Mushroom already, because the commentator's curse is real. But there we go. Corey then and Dynamo Dan carrying on their fight. Of course, the top 5 yet to pit. Then Star was in a bit of no man's land then, unfortunately, for the Haas driver as it stands. Then Gina now all over the back of Smithy. Then Sirius Mushroom coming with them as well. Then Umabro and IRS, both the Mercedes yet to pit in this Grand Prix. Then maybe holding it out for the soft compound tyres. But now Vintage is all over the back of both of them as well. Then Jake the Slayer on the hard compound tyres is coming through as well. Then Dukanko then is next as well. Then we've got Ginger Ages on the older medium compound tyres. We've got a change for the lead as Luke has taken the lead away from Winnie, then down towards turn 1, then into lap 17, and Luke leads the way. Of course, championship leader then Luke on 76 points then is looking to extend his championship lead, of course, yet to pit then in this Grand Prix. Same for his closest rival, that's Dynamo Dan in P2 then of the championship standings, currently on 55 points then before this race has begun then. But yes, we might see a few chopping and changing in terms of the championship standings as well. Then Mr. Elite's got himself past Real Ashton, who's yet to pit. He's coming in the pit lane now. Dukanko's got a 10-second bonus for speeding in the pits as well. Then my goodness me, Real Ashton has got himself slowed down just in time as well, then getting himself into the box now, and away we go. Then Rocket Lee then rocketing up into P16 and passing the 2 in the pit lane then, of course, trying to use those hard compound tyres to his advantage as well in this one. Fantastic. Right then, so far so good then. As we go on to lap 17 then, very shortly we'll go on to lap 18 then, because the top 2 are flying through this race then. Of course, they have not pitted then from their medium compound tyres, but they are using the medium compound tyre to the best of its extent as well then in this first stint, and flying around the penultimate corner now. Then let's see what Winnie and Luke are going to do then. Are they going to come into the pit lane, or are they going to carry on for one more lap then here? It looks like they're going to stick it out then for one more lap then on those medium compound tyres. Lap 18 of 33 has commenced then. Corey Brennan and Dynamo Dan carrying on their fight as we got Winnie then taking the lead then into P1, then into turn 1, almost Luke pushing him through the corner. Then Casey's got a 3-second penalty, unfortunately. Corey Brennan has done the same, then he's got himself into P3, passing Dynamo Dan here in the Williams car, then passing the Red Bull, that is. 5 seconds back then, unfortunately, Styles then. We've got 5 more seconds back to Dan leading the way. He's got 4-second gap now to Smithy Almighty. Then Luke and Winnie then switching places again then into the hairpin. They want to be wary then, of course, the same thing as what happened with Ginner and Smithy. Then they don't want to be fighting too hard, because they can lose a bit of time then, as we found out then in the pit stop phase between Smithy, Ginner, and of course Dan, who's leading the way now by 4 seconds, and this is the net race leader then is Dan. Don't forget, he was battling Smithy, he was battling Ginner for the lead of this Grand Prix as well then, wasn't he? So it's going to be well, pretty good stuff indeed for Dan then, if he can just keep it smooth, keep it clean for the remaining 15 laps or so then here in Portimao. Then we'll find out then at the end of the Grand Prix, of course, how it's gone. But yeah, you've got to stay tuned then to find out as well then. But so far it's looking pretty good then for Dan, I should say, and we'll see how it's going to fare then for the rest of the field as well then. But Luke leading the way then. This is going to call it a day then, coming to the pit lane now. Then he's going to stay out, is he? Yes, he's staying out once again then. Winnie then is going to charge on then for the race leader with some DRS then down this main straight. Then he's past the kick Sauber already, and heading into turn 1 then. The green machine, one of the green machines, has taken the lead, and one of them has lost the lead. Dynamo Dan then up into P3, passing Corey as well. Then these two again working together just like the two leaders then. then, but unfortunately they're not being able to catch up then to the two leaders with their teamwork and their antics, even though they're not in the same team. They're still in a green car, but they're not quite in the same team. Here comes Tinder then on the attack then in towards turn 1, then it's going to go side by side with Smithy. My goodness me. Into turn 1 then, Gino up into P7 now. And Serious Mushroom there is right there in the background then, waiting in the wings then for anything to go untoward then as we go through. Then Ginger Rage, oh my goodness me, then Ginger Rage, and oh, and Vintage is off the circuit there as well. Then, oh dear, Umapro sticking his nose in as well, goodness me, side by side through turn 2. And wow, Mr. Elite's gone through as well. The Mr. Elite's on fresher tyres as well, so he's going to try and use those to his advantage, of course. We've got Luke and Winnie then battling for the race lead as well. Then through sector 3, then this is where they're going to lose time. They're going to go side by side through there, but Winnie's taking the lead. There we go then, nonetheless. Right then, where were we? Mushroom, not Mushroom, sorry, Mr. Elite and Vintage as well. Then we've got Rocket Lee then involved coming up in that back of the pack as well, of course, on the fresher tyres, and of course on the hard compound tyres he'll be able to go. We pretty much could go the 33 lap distance, I think, on that hard compound tyre in this Grand Prix. So yes, it's going to be interesting stuff indeed. But of course, you're not going to have any tyre wear, I don't think, at the end of this race or this stint. Dynamo down in the pit lane now. So here's the first of the remainder of those who have yet to pit. That is, Winnie's got a 3-second penalty then going into turn 2, unfortunately for Winnie, which is bad news indeed. Soft compound tyres going on the Red Bull now, and where will he come out then? He'll be behind Mushroom, behind Smithy, behind Ginner. Then Smithy takes back the position then for P6, then into turn 1. Then Dynamo Dan coming out of the pit lane now will be in close proximity, I think, with Ginger Rage then, as the Red Bull then can get the power down now. But there comes the Racing Bull racing towards turn 1, but Dynamo Dan out in front then into P9. Ginger Rage, I think, might be able to get himself within that DRS window then of the Red Bulls. We go through into turn 3 and now into turn 4 as well then. But yeah, Ginger Rage has got himself some DRS then on that Red Bull, heading through into sector 2 very shortly as well. Then Vintage then is hold off Mr. Elite then for the time being, but Mr. Elite on the charge then down towards the hairpin. I think he's going to have the inside then to make the move then in the Haas, and up into P11 now for Mr. Elite then. Good stuff indeed. Fantastic, brilliant stuff. Right then, Winnie picked up a penalty now, unfortunately then for Winnie. That's going to be very costly indeed then, of course, with his battle with Luke. If Luke is going to be leading the race then as well, then Winnie could be in for a charge as well. Then IRS is being passed by Dukanko, I think. Then Dukanko up into P18 then, but IRS going to battle back then down towards the hairpin, and he's got them. Oh god, there's contact there, and my god, then that is dangerous stuff indeed. And I think Dukanko letting him go back through then. Into the pits comes Winnie then, and Corey Brenner then for their first pit stops of the race. Styles and Luke carrying on then at this stage. Dan, of course, going through after making the stop 7 laps ago now. It's quite a long time ago now. Winnie then soft compound tyres, then Corey soft compound tyres as well. Then Smithy and Ginner then switching places into turn 1 and 2 once again. Mushroom then is still waiting in the wings. Winnie then out in P7. Then Corey is going to be in his fight with Dynamo Dan once again then, but he's lost out then to the Red Bull, sorry, by a second as well then. So Dynamo Dan with the undercut then has got himself a bit of a gap now, a bit more of a breathing space compared to previously, that is. Vintage also in the pits then, soft compound tyres going on. Same for you, Mabro, then in the Mercedes. Where is Slayer? Slayer might be able to get himself past these two then as we go down towards the first turn. Then Slayer flying through. It's going to be very close indeed. Then in the background we've got IRS, we've got Dukanko then, and there they come out the pit lane as well. Then it's going to be very tight indeed then through here, and oh my god, then IRS is off the circuit then, and I think he's going to have to yield to Vintage there, because of course he went off the track slightly. And goodness me, Dukanko then has gone diving down the inside then, and unfortunately that was not on then, not on for an overtake, I should say, for Dukanko. I don't think then he's gone over the curb then, unfortunately. Corey Brennan's got a 3-second penalty as well. Then into the pits comes Luke. Will Styles come in as well. Then Dan is caught up then with the Haas. Then he's coming into the pit lane now anyway, but Dan will retake the lead then on lap 22 then of 33. Then 11 laps to go then at the end of this one. Dan then into P1, back up into P1 I should say. Then there's got all sorts of battling going on behind, and all this battling has cost, oh dear, I thought that was going to be close indeed. Dynamo Dan sets the fastest lap of the race then. Here's motoring on the soft compound tyres then, so yeah, Dynamo Dan then, we've got all sorts of pit stop activity as well. Then where is Luke? Luke's come out in P6 then on the fresh soft compound tyres, and well, Dynamo Dan's almost caught up with him as well, to be fair, which is pretty good stuff indeed. And like I was saying, Smithy and Jinner then all the battling, as Kamara Racer and Beaster pointed out, all the battling then has cost them 5 seconds already. Then they pitted a lap earlier than Dan, but the undercut then just didn't work then for these two then as well. Then of course, and they've unfortunately I think got stuck in a bit of traffic then, and that slowed them down even more as well. And the battling didn't help then, and they lost out then to Dan by almost 2.5 seconds. Then after the pit stops for all three of them, I should say, Mushroom has pitted a lap later and got himself into the fight then for a podium place, and currently sitting in a with the penalty situation. That is, he's currently sitting in P2. Is Mushroom then, so that's looking pretty good indeed then for Mushroom. Once again on the podium as well as it stands in, if he can keep it all together then, but I'm sure he can. I'm not going to jinx him. I don't want to do that. So there we go. Dynamo Dan unfortunately has been caught up by Corey. Then Corey's got 1 lap younger tyres than the Red Bull, heading through into lap 23 then of 33 then, flying over the crest of the hill then down towards turn 1 then. I think Winnie's a bit too far back to go for a move then into the first corner. Sorry, Jinner's a bit too far back to go for a move into the first corner. But there we are then. So good stuff indeed. Then normal service has resumed. Somebody just set the fastest lap of the race. I think it might have been Luke. Dynamo Dan's got the fastest. Sorry, not got the fastest lap. He's got the 3-second penalty then to be added to his race time. Currently, that would it would keep him P7 as it stands. Corey's also got a penalty as well then, but Corey is on the charge and now within his DRS as well. Then Astro John and Casey Jennett are battling away then into turn 1. Then Casey stays P13 for the time being. Rocket Lee on the hard compound tyres. Unfortunately, I don't think the hard compound tyres were the best call then in that terms of that strategy. Then potentially, if he had gone a bit earlier, then maybe the hard compound did that. Ferrari's gone very wide then, so potentially if he'd gone a bit earlier, then the hard compound tyres would be a better strategy. But he's still going then out there, and of course, if there's anything untoward going on for those ahead of him, or if the tyres start to drop off for those ahead of him as well, then Rocket Lee will be in the best position as well then. Right then, over the crest of the hill then, we've got Mr. Elite then putting the pressure on Ginger Rage. P9 and P10 for these two, and Ginger Rage is doing a fantastic job. He's gone under the radar in this race so far, but now I'm going to put the spotlight on him, and I'm not sure he's going to like that. But there we are then. He's currently holding off the Haas then of Mr. Elite then. They've got Styles then 3 seconds behind. Styles, of course, is on the soft compound tyres, so oh dear, I must have put him under the spotlight a bit too much there. Sorry about that. We'll have to revoke that 3-second penalty then, because I was putting too much pressure on Ginger Age there. Mr. Elite's putting the pressure on as well then, as we head in towards turn 1 then onto lap 24. Then Mr. Elite's got himself past with some DRS then into turn 1. IRS has got a 3-second penalty as well then, unfortunately for IRS. Then I think that's a few penalties he's picked up in this race so far, but to be fair, it is a penalty friendly track, let's just say that, especially with the speed into turn 1 then around this sort of part of the area, part of the circuit as well then. In the first sector, it's very easy to get a track extension warning, that is, and can cause a few problems, let's just say that then. Out in front then, Dan is skating off in the distance, and he's got a 6.5 second lead. Then he is absolutely loving life here in Portugal tonight then, and it's nice and sunny then for Dan to have a nice cruise to the finish line, all being well. But yeah, I don't want to jinx it. Right then, these three are in a bit of a fight as well then, but we've got Winnie, we've got Luke, we've got Dynamo Dan potentially as well then, and Corey Brennan then all coming up behind them on soft compound tyres, and this could get a bit dicey indeed then for those who are in a bit of a battle then from P2 downwards, because those on the softs are coming at them then very quickly indeed, and of course using their soft compound tyres to the advantage as well then. But we'll have to wait and see then who's going to be on the favourable strategy as well here. Jinner has got himself past Smithy then, this time into turn 1 on lap 25. Then Jinner takes P2 away from the Kicksauber. The Mushroom, I think, is just being very patient here. But of course, Mushroom will be the first to be targeted by those on the soft compound tyres, and the first one being his teammate as well then in the Aston Martin. That's Winnie, who is only 2 seconds away now, heading into sector 2 as well. Then flying through then is Winnie in that Aston Martin on the soft compound tyres. Then Luke, sorry, is 1.6 seconds behind now, and trying to bring that gap down as well. Then he's on 1 lap younger tyres than Winnie as well then, so he's going to hopefully have a bit more freshness towards the end of the race on those soft compound tyres. But they seem to be holding on pretty well then indeed. I think we saw about 15 laps then for some drivers in very, very early on in this race. Of course, the fuel loads are lighter as well now, so the tyres might be able to last a bit longer with that extra weight lifted off them, I should say. I'm not quite sure, but there we are then. Oh dear, Dynamo Dan going wide then. That might be a track extension warning as well then for Dynamo Dan. That's going to be opening the door potentially for Corey Brennan to try and stick his nose in somewhere or potentially make a move then on the main straight with some DRS assistance. Heading through the penultimate corner, we've got a yellow flag. It's a problem for a Mercedes. Then Umabro, no, it's not Umabro, it's his teammate of IRS. Then IRS has had an issue then at the top of the hill of turn 4. Then I think that's where the where the traction loss really is. Then getting that car back underway then for IRS, and away he goes. Then Smithy and Jenner are side by side into turn 1 again. And my goodness me, then Corey's got himself up into P7, passing Dynamo Dan for that position as well then. But Smithy and Ginnan, they've been joined. Winnie's got himself in the fight here, and Winnie's now got himself into a potential podium fight as well here. Of course, on the soft compound tyres, he could be potentially going to get himself through. If he can get himself through, that is another question. But potentially get himself through then, and potentially get that gap as well, and with the penalty even to Sirius Mushroom's teammate then to get himself an Aston Martin 2-3 on the podium as it stands. If they can sort the order out, that is. But it will be very difficult indeed, because Ginner and Smithy are going to put up a fight, I think, whatever comes their way. But now into the fight then goes Winnie. Then Luke is only a few tenths or a couple of tenths now off the fight as well here. So it could get very spicy indeed then as we go into sector 3 now. Winnie is almost pushing his teammate through the final few corners of the sector, and now into the penultimate corner as well. Then look at the gain then that the soft compound tyres have on the mediums end of the other Aston Martin then, and the McLaren then of Jenner as we go through the final corner. Winnie is pushing Mushroom through the corner almost as Winnie then takes P4. And I don't think Mushroom is fighting this one, but he's going to have some DRS then, of course, down to the first turn then, and harvesting away already. Then we've got yellow flags again then for another Mercedes. Unfortunately, I think IRS is having a few issues. No, he's not. It's Umabro having an issue then this time then. Both the Mercedes struggling, unfortunately. But there we go. And Winnie is going to try. Oh, thought he's going to go for a move then. He's trying to go for a move now on Gin, and then he's got the inside. He's got the outside, I should say. Then to go for a move then down here as we go into the hairpin. It's going to be very late on the brakes then, and there's contact between the McLaren, and there's more contact between the Aston Martin. And my goodness me, then that was dangerous stuff indeed. And Luke's gone through for P4, and Luke's taken it away then from Winnie then. And Luke's decided, right now I'm the championship leader. I'm going to go for it this time. And we've got another problem for Mercedes again. What is happening here at turn 4 then for IRS, it seems like, trying to get himself back in the way then, but hopefully all he needs to do is just crack on then and don't cause a safety car. Rocket Lee is putting for soft compound tyres again then as well then. We've got more action here as well as we go into sector 3 then. Winnie sticking his nose, I should say, down the inside of Luke. And Luke's trying to hold on to that P4 position. Of course, Luke on the soft compound tyres. No penalties for Luke as well as it stands. Will be putting himself into prime contention to get himself on the podium once again then. And here comes Luke then on the attack. Then can he get himself back past Ginner then and into that P3 position on track, that is, as we head into turn 1. This is where it's going to get dicey, and Luke's going for the move down the inside. There's contact there as well then, and Winnie's gone through, and now there's more contact between Ginner as well then into turn 2 and 3, and Ginner's lost out to the Aston Martin, sorry, on the soft compound tyres as well then. My goodness me, that is spicy, is all I have to say about that then. But yes, right then, and now the two kick salvers. Then Luke's trying to put the pressure on his teammate Smithy. Then Astrodron has got himself past Casey for P12. Casey fighting back then into turn 2. Then, oh dear, IRS has retired in the pit lane, unfortunately for IRS. He's out of the session, and he's quitting in the pit lane, unfortunately for IRS. That is unfortunately the first retirement of the race so far, and only lap 28. And so, well, unfortunately, it's bad news in a way, because we could have got ourselves to the end of the race with all drivers then finishing this Grand Prix. But unfortunately for IRS, then he has decided that he's got better things to do, and that's it. So there we go then. Right then, Luke is trying to put the pressure on for P2 then. He's got no penalties as well then. Of course, Smithy has picked up that penalty, so that could be a factor towards the end of the Grand Prix as well then with the penalty situation. There's quite a few drivers out there with penalties added to their name as it stands as well then, so we'll have to wait and see then if it's going to cause a bit of an issue then in terms of a mix-up at the end of the race. But right, here comes Luke then on the charge then. Luke trying to go for the lead of the Grand Prix then. Is Smithy going to let him go then or not? No, Luke goes through then for P2. Oh, goodness me. I thought I was going to get dicey. But there we are then. So Luke now 9 seconds off the lead. unfortunately, I think with all the battling that's been going on, then Dan has just been able to cruise off in the distance, so you don't have to worry about anything really. Just making sure that he keeps the car pointed in the right direction then for the time being, and he will be a-okay then to win this Grand Prix then with 29 laps completed. We've only got 4 laps to go then in this Grand Prix as well. Then Astra John then has got himself back past Casey as well. These two carrying on their fight then into Sector 2 this time, and the Ferrari and the McLaren have put on a great show indeed actually. Even though it was down in P12 and 13, then they've been still putting on a fight. Then of course it is a points paying position now in bronze this season, and heading into the hairpin then Casey thinks about it, but thinks better of it as well. Then DeCanco has been passed by Rocket Lee. Oh dear, what's happened then? It looks like DeCanco's gone very slowly through there. Rocket Lee then has got himself through then into P17 then. He seems to be lagging a bit then. I'm not quite sure if that's just me or something else. Then we've got a problem then for a Red Bull. It's Dynamo Dan who's had an issue somewhere. I think then he's had an issue somewhere at the Sector 3 line as well. Then got himself back underway quickly enough then, but unfortunately that's cost him 4 seconds then to Corey. Jinner is in the pit lane. Jinner has got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane again then for Jinner, unfortunately. I'm not quite sure what's happened then for Jinner. Then Jinner's coming back into the pits. Wait, Smithy's carrying on then, so I'm not quite sure what's happened to Jinner then. Has he got a front wing change? He's serving a 10-second penalty. I think he's got the 10 seconds, of course, from the initial pit stop then, 17 laps ago that was. But bit of an odd one that as well then. So he is, I don't think he is changing the front wing as well. So he's going to go back underway. He's lost out to both the McLaren, who's his teammate, Astrodron then, and Casey then in P12. Will he come out ahead of Jake the Slayer though is the question. Fresh soft compound tyres going on the McLaren, but he's coming out then in P13, and I'm not quite sure if that's going to work out in his favour, that is, unfortunately, because he's served a 10-second penalty. He's still got a 10-second penalty. We'll have a look at the penalty situations as well then, because that speeding in the pit lane then, of course, is a slam dunk 10-second penalty as well nowadays. Yes, penalty situation then, there's quite a few as we go through that sort of situation. There's 3 seconds for Smithy, 3 for Winnie, 3 for everybody apart from 10 for Jinner and 10 for DeCanco basically, so everybody's on 3. Right then, we'll have a look at the position changes as well then for the driver of the day vote as well. Smithy, Luke, Dan and Mushroom are your candidates then for driver of the day. Of course, they currently, well, apart from Smithy then, none of them have penalties as well then, so that is looking pretty promising indeed. Luke has gained 2 places then from P4, then Dan of course has been was battling away then with Smithy and Jinner at the beginning of the Grand Prix. And there we go then. Real Ashton is also in the pit lane for soft compound tyres, I would assume, as we go through then. Ginger Age is being put under pressure now for that P9 position then from Mr. Elite. And Mr. Elite going for the move then in towards turn 1 then. And Ginger Age has gone on the dirty part of the track then, just like Valtteri Bottas did in Mugello, I think it was. And got himself out of the way of his teammate. Casey is back up past the McLaren of Astrodron this time and into P11 then. But Astrodron, of course, no penalties for him then. Could get himself a spot or 2 then on the penalty situation then towards the end of this Grand Prix. Winnie then and Smithy carrying on the fight then with Luke. Now Luke's not been able to drop his teammate then as it stands, and this could be good news indeed then, because of course they're trying to extend the gap then to Mushroom then, because if Mushroom drops out that 3-second window then of Smithy or Winnie, then of course that driver then gains that place or stays in that place as well then when the checkered flag falls. But they've only got 2 laps or so, because we're starting off lap 32. Penultimate lap of the Grand Prix has begun then. Dan starts us underway. More yellow flags for a Red Bull, and it's Dynamo Dan again then, it looks like, in the top of the order then. And now he's going to be under pressure from Styles then. Styles is going to be able to get himself through in an extra position here as well then, because Styles has not got any penalties as well then. He's now within DRS then of Dynamo Dan, who's had the same issue twice then at the same part of the circuit. Corey Brennan's passing for P5, I should say, goodness me. But of course Sirius Mushroom, I don't think is too worried about that, because he's going to be again on the medium compound tyres with no penalties. Then we'll be able to get himself back past them. But of course the problem with this is that he's lost out then to that 3-second window of the 2 ahead of him. That is Smithy, that is Corey, that is Winnie, I should say then. And unfortunately that's going to put us outside that 3-second window then, that Smithy and Winnie's penalties then will not be able to promote Mushroom up a place or 2 then. Jinner's at the fastest lap of the race then. He's got himself that extra point then for the fastest lap, and of course currently in the points paying positions then with points down to 15th here in bronze. So there we go then. Rocket Lee then is almost on the brink then of getting himself back in the points paying positions as well then, with those soft compound tyres. Then he's got himself all over the back of Vintage and heading into turn 3 and now in towards turn 4 then. Can he use some DRS then to try and get himself past that Alpine into the hairpin here as well then, but I think he's a bit too far back to make any move at this point then, as we're going to go through then sector 2 very shortly indeed. More yellow flags this time for Ferrari. The Kanko, I thought it was the Kanko, but he seems to be A-okay. Then Rocket Lee has passed Vintage as well. Then Rocket Lee into the points paying positions now, and rocketing on then as well. Then, like I said, he's doing a good job then as well. We've got Dynamo Dan speaking of a 3-second penalty. Then we've got Serious Mushroom passing Corey then into turn 1. Then Smithy and Winnie are battling as well. Then Smithy is diving down the inside. There's contact again with the Aston Martin then, and over the crest of the hill then into turn 4. Then Smithy is all over the back then of Winnie. Then once again, then Winnie now trying to put the charge on with Luke in P2. But of course, Winnie needs to make that move then if he wants to firstly hold on to a podium place here, because Smithy and Winnie have the same penalties as well. Then we're on the final lap of the Grand Prix. I've missed it completely, but we're on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Oh dear, as Winnie, I thought, oh God, oh my goodness me, then where is he going then? And they've both lost an abundance amount of time then, and Mushroom could be loving that, because look at this, Mushroom's flying back into a podium place now, and brilliant stuff indeed. Then it's getting spicy indeed. Then we'll come back to all of that then, because here comes Dan Dan, who has been brilliant this race. He has disappeared after the pit stop phases as well, and done a fantastic job then. He has been on his own then pretty much for the rest of the second stint of this race, but here he comes then around the final corner. Then Dan Dan wins the Portuguese Grand Prix. What a race victory then for the Alpine driver then. What a win for Dan Dan, and well done indeed then for a brilliant 33 laps of action then for Dan Dan. And like I said, he was on his own for most of it, so well done indeed. Luke then P2. Serious Mushroom gets the final podium place then with a penalty situation as well then for those around him as well. Then Smithy Almighty P4, winning then P5, then Corey Brennan P6, then Dynamo Dan. Dynamo Dan in P8, sorry, Hungry Styles then gets P7. Dynamo Dan P8, no, Dynamo Dan, sorry, P9, then Mr. Elite P8. Dynamo Dan P9, then Ginger Age P10 then, fantastic from Ginger Age. Then Astra John will cross the line in P11, then Casey in P12, I think, then as Ginner crosses the line then in P13. 10-second penalty, of course, unserved as well. Then can Slayer get himself within that 10-second penalty as well, then get himself an extra spot? I'm not quite sure if he can or not, though, but he stays. Is P14 for him, then no, Rocket Lee P14, Jake the Slayer P15, then Vintage will cross the line in P16. Yamabro, sorry, P16, Vintage P17 to Kanko in P18. Real Ashton has been lapped, unfortunately, then he's P19, and IRS did not finish this race, unfortunately for him. Wow, what a race that was then. Brilliant stuff indeed from Bronze End once again here in Portugal this time as well. Then absolutely fantastic racing from all you guys as well. They're putting on a brilliant show then, and yeah, like I said, the first full grid of the season as well, I believe. So well done indeed. Becca, driver of the day, says Serious Mushroom then. 100%, yeah, indeed. So there we go then. There is your podium then. Dan Dan, your race victor then in the Alpine. Of course, the Kick Sauber of Luke then in P2. And the Aston Martin, sorry, of Serious Mushroom in P3. And there we go then. Dan Dan then has got the driver of the day vote as well then in the comment section as well. Brilliant stuff indeed then. And Becca, driver of the day, says Jake the Slayer as well then. There is your podium celebrations then in the on the top of the steps then for the top three as well. Then there is the classification then for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Round 5 is done and dusted, and we are flying through the season already. We're over a quarter of the way through, and well over a quarter of the way through now as well then with round 5 done and dusted as well. Then Dan Dan, the race victor, fantastic stuff indeed then for the Alpine driver. Then Luke P2, Serious Mushroom P3, Smithy P4, Winnie P5, Corey P6, Hungry Stars P7, Mr. Elite P8, Dynamo Dan P9, and Ginger Age P10. Astrodon P11, then Casey P12, Ginner, P13, Rocket Lee P14, Jake the Slayer rounds off the points paying positions in P15, your Mad Bro, Vintage, DeCanco, and Real Ashton, then P16 down to P19. Unfortunately, our only retirement of the Grand Prix was IRS in P20 in the pit lane. Brilliant stuff indeed then. Well done indeed to all drivers who managed to finish that race as well. Then it was a nightmare track. So there we go. We're done and dusted with it now. Out of the way then. We'll start off the interviews then with Dan Dan, our race winner then tonight then here in Portugal then. Dan Dan, well, to start off with, you had an epic battle then with the with those on the soft compound tyres, the likes of Ginner and Smithy. Can you tell us what your thoughts were then in that first battle as well? Or first stint, sorry. Oh, he's left the party. Good stuff. All right. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Dan Dan. Hopefully Dan Dan can hear us now, but we'll start off with... there he is, he's back now. Right then, Dan Dan, we'll start off with your interview, shall we? A fantastic first stint indeed then. You were battling with Smithy and Ginner then in that first stint on the soft stint. Can you tell us what your thoughts were in that first stint then? What you were doing then? What was your plan then in that first stint when you were battling with those other two then for the top spot?
Yeah, thank you. Just essentially just to stay ahead. I had some good straight line speed, so... I just wanted to stay ahead, because I could see that Smithy was in third and he was struggling to get past Jinner, so I didn't want to go into that position. I just wanted to stay ahead of them, and the intention was to get the undercut, but they both boxed before me. I don't know what happened on their outlap, but when I then boxed one lap later, I was 2 or 3 seconds ahead. So I don't know if they got held up in traffic or caught up between each other. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it all worked out pretty good for me.
It seemed to be a bit of both, actually. It was they were trying to fight through sector 2 and 3, and then there was a bit of traffic to get involved as well. Then, so I think that helped you out. Then in the second stint, it was pretty much you on your own, wasn't it? So you were just cruising to the finish line. Did you have a care in the world in that second stint?
Yeah, my race engineer was just giving me the lap times, and I was sort of consistently within a couple of tenths doing the similar lap time. So I was never relaxed, but I was quite confident as the laps ticked down that they weren't going to catch me. And I saw a number of penalties as well, so it was only really Luke that I thought could do some danger, but I think he got caught up in traffic and it was too little too late for him.
And another fantastic victory, and I think that puts you into contention then with, obviously with Luke getting P2 in the end of this one, but with more wins under your belt, like I said, tonight then as well. Do you reckon you can get yourself back in contention for the championship? Of course, Luke started this race before we got ourselves going, then with 76 points. So you were on 49. Then the race win sways that in your favour by 7 points. And do you reckon that towards the end of this season you might be back up there for the title fight?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've not had great luck. I mean, first race it was my own mistake. I spun when I was in quite a commanding position in Australia. When I was in the lead, I spun myself. It was my own error. Last week, I got caught up with a last lap incident where I had a very good chance of winning. So it's fine margin. So if I just carry on the way I am, then I've got no reason to think that I can't win it.
Great stuff indeed. Then we'll be looking forward to seeing you back then on the podium. So well done then to Dan, and then tonight's race winner then here in Portugal as well. Then fantastic stuff indeed.
Thank you.
Where are you?
I'm here.
Well, Luke, then of course you had a bit of a different perspective, I think, on that race as well. To be fair, of course you were trying to get yourself through the field then in the first stint as well. Then, but you were there or thereabouts on the medium compound tyres, then a couple of seconds behind. Then, and of course the battling with Winnie then sort of held you guys up a bit slightly then from catching the top 3 as it stood at the beginning of the first stint. That is, what was your thoughts then in that first stint as well? Then going through on the medium compound tyre.
Yeah, like when you see everyone ahead of you, pretty much everyone ahead of you is on softs. You know that you've stuck your neck out. You're going to try something different. The pace was fine. Obviously, the top 3 gapped as you would on the soft tyres because there's quite a big delta here between the soft and the medium. But yeah, just sort of stuck it out. I was really hoping I could work with Winnie a bit more. But he had some really odd battery choices. He'd burn his batteries. He'd sort of come down the hill, and then once you climb the hill onto the start-finish straight, he'd start obviously saving. So I was getting really confused because he would pull away from me originally and then I would catch up to him. So by the end of the straight, I'm right behind him. And if I go for a move, obviously turn 1 here is quite a fast corner. So if you go for an ill-judged move, you're probably going to end up off worse, to be honest. Winnie and I we could have worked together. I'm sure I wasn't great out there, but yeah, Winnie and I sort of trying to work together. And then once Winnie pitted, I came in and just sort of saw what I could do afterwards, really, on those soft tyres.
And the soft tyres really helped you as well. And on that last stint as well, you got yourself obviously into contention then with for a podium place. And then there was a bit of a mix-up, I think, with Winnie and somebody else there. But you got yourself through and up into the podium places then. And after you got yourself into P2, it was, it wasn't smooth sailing, I would say. But you were pretty confident on those softs towards the end of that race.
Yeah, I mean, my engineer was telling me not to worry about Dan, which, fair enough. Dan was well clear, but even by the time I made it through the traffic with about 5 laps to go, I think I brought the gap down to under 8 seconds, and that was as much as I could do. He was well clear. So I was pushing, but I was really trying to help Smithy, because obviously he had a 3 second. I saw that they'd gapped Mushroom, and I really sort of hoped that I could sort of tow along with Smithy and he could keep ahead of Winnie, and he could keep on the podium. But then not quite sure what happened on the last lap. Obviously they started fighting and Mushroom got back into within their penalties. But yeah, towards the end I was just really trying to help Smithy to make sure that he could get that podium, which didn't quite work out, but still a really strong result for the team.
Nice one indeed. Then, and I don't think it was untoward. I think they were still trying to battle side by side into the sector 2, the sector 2 uphill hairpin, and I think there was just a few people having a bit of an issues with traction. That's all that was going on there. But that's where Mushroom got himself back in contention as well. Then, but nonetheless, another P2 for yourself. Then, of course, not the race win tonight. Then, which you're familiar with, but another podium for yourself under your belt. Then, only the first 5 rounds, and of course, extending your championship lead in most cases. In most views as well, obviously with with big points as well in P2. What's your thoughts then coming into Imola then for next week? Then are you going to go for the win there as well then, or do you reckon it'll be a bit of a tough battle?
It's always a tough battle in bronze. These guys, we're all right on top of each other. I mean, like tonight we had a DRS train for the top 3. Every race has been a DRS train in many respects. But yeah, I really enjoy Imola as a track. It's one of my favourites on this game. I love the flowing nature of it. So yeah, gunning for the win as always. I think the pecking order's more or less been established now. I know who's where, who's quick, who's who does what. So gunning for the win. But I'm going to have a hell of a fight on my hands next week. And I think all the way throughout the season. Congratulations to Dan tonight. I know I kind of slightly, you could argue, robbed him of the win last week in Jeddah. He well deserved the win tonight, and fair play. And I look forward to recommencing next week in Imola.
There you go, Dan. He just returned the favour tonight. That's all he was doing there. So
sure, yeah, we'll go with that.
Well done, indeed. Then P2 tonight. Then we'll jump on to P3. Then Serious Mushroom. Once again, back on the podium. Then for yourself. How was that race for you?
Yeah, it was all right. Now I've been ill, so kind of just settled down and just followed everybody.
Yeah, and you got yourself into contention after the pit stops as well with Ginner and Smithy, who were in a bit of a battle as well. Then, what was your thoughts when you came out of the pits and you were battling them, who of course were former race leaders on the previous stint?
Well, I made a horrible mistake coming out of the pit. I don't know if it was on the stream. I nearly went straight on. Because I didn't know whether the guys behind me were going to brake and let me go through, because I was ahead of them. But it looked like they were going to challenge me into the first corner. So I didn't know whether to turn in or just keep going. And then I panicked and went straight on. So.
It worked out for you at the end of the debate, so that's not too bad. In that final few laps, then of course you had your teammate trying to battle through. Then Luke, of course, as said, was battling through as well. Then and you were trying to hang on then with Ginner and Smithy as well. When you saw the gap come back down under 3 seconds, then on that final lap, then did you think the podium's in the bag then as well with Smithy and Ginner having a battle then through that final lap?
Yeah, I kind of thought I could get a podium. The reason why I let everyone go, to be honest, because I don't like to cause like bang into anyone, cause trouble. So, Ginner and who was it? Was it Smithy?
I think so. Yeah.
I was sure they were going to take each other out or something. Something was going to happen. So, because they was coming close to it. So, I kind of backed off it, and I thought you're costing me time here. And then Ginner pitted, and I thought, oh, thanks for that.
Fair enough then.
Of course, in the end, you got yourself a fantastic podium once again. Then you've been up there in the podium places then quite regularly this season. Then do you reckon there's a few more podiums to come in the next few races?
Yeah, I'll give it a good go. I want to get as high as I can.
Sounds about right then. Good stuff indeed. Well, I think you got yourself almost into the top 3 of the championship as it stands for the drivers. That is after tonight's results. But we'll have to work that out because I can't do the maths myself.
He has, yes.
Oh, there we go then.
So someone can do maths instead. So that's all right.
Don't ask Ginger to do the maths.
Lead to Mushroom then. Hey.
Don't ask Ginger to do the math.
He's got his Excel spreadsheet for that sort of stuff. Don't worry. But yeah, fantastic. So indeed, then to the podium here tonight. Then in Portugal, we'll round it off now here in Portugal for the ALR season. That is, we'll be back next week then in Imola. So stay tuned to ALR. Play more action.